Hello wonderful people, it's Wild here. Today I'll be showing you how to build this Japanese style cherry blossom house. This build is super simple to create and I'll show you how I decorate the interior and exterior of this build, so let's get creating. The materials you'll need for this build are on your screen now. Here is the outline of today's build. You can see it's a 9 by 11 rectangle, and the longest side is the side we'll be having the door on. We're going to begin our build by creating the foundation using some stone brick. I'm going to place a chiseled stone brick in each corner here. And then along the two shorter sides they're spaced 3 in, so 1 in the center, and then I'll count 2 in from each side on the longest side to add in 4 more. So they should be spaced like this. On the front, I'm going to use 3 stairs and curve them round to create the walk up, and then I'll connect the rest up using some stone brick. Once you're all the way around, you can grab some stripped spruce logs and fill this in. So there's our foundation done, and we can build the house on top of this. The first thing we're going to do is grab some cherry logs and place them on top of each of the chiseled stone brick. We'll also be using these cherry logs to create the framing of the house. So we're going to come to each corner and count 1 block in diagonally like this and place in a cherry log. So you should see that there should be a 3 block gap between these two and then a 5 block gap between these ones. And we can have a whole load of posts like this. We'll then build up another 4 on top, 1, 2, 3, 4, so they're a total of 5 high. And then connect them up. We'll also grab out some stone brick and fill in around the base of the build. And then at the front we're going to use 2 stairs as well to create the start of the curve for the doorway. Now we're going to fill in our walls. I'm going to start by placing some cherry planks on top of each of the stone brick. Then I want to add my windows, and I'm going to do this from the exterior of the build, placing in some trapdoors. I'll then go back in with some cherry planks and fill in the gaps. On the front wall, I'll add one to each of these corners here and here, and then I'm going to build across the top and add in 2 cherry stairs to create a circle shape. So it should look like that. Then we're going to come inside the build to fill in this gap using some spruce trapdoors. You can see I'm stacking 3 on top of each other here, 3 on top of each other there, and then I'm going to use a placeholder block to add 1 more over the top. I'll then place my cherry door from the inside, and I'm placing it on this block in between these 2 stairs. So not here, on this block there, and you can see the block is highlighted when you have your cursor over it. There we go, the walls are in. Next we're going to work on the upper story. I'm going to start by filling in at the level of the block here where I'm placing a spruce slab on the upper level of these cherry planks. Now you need to decide where you want your ladder. I'm going to have mine here, so I'll come down to the bottom story and put that in and come all the way back up. Now that we're up here, we can start adding in some windows. So I've got 1 on this side here, and I'll use a placeholder block to create a little point. I've got 1 on the other side. And then I have 1 on the front and back, centered on the build, so there should be a block gap on either side like that. Once we've got all those gable points in, I'll come outside the build to add in all of my windows. And I'm using these cherry trapdoors with their fantastic pattern. So it should look like that. I'll also take some more cherry logs, and I'm going to have them coming out on either side like this on the 2 ends of the build. Now we're going to start adding some more details to these walls, and I'm starting with some cherry wood signs. Now I'm placing these on the block above the stairs and the windows, and you can see I'm not putting anything on them. It's just to add that subtle texture, and you can see that there is a slight difference in the color of the signs. We're going to wrap these all the way around the build. Now it can take a bit of time if you're clicking and placing, so one trick if you're in creative is you can hold down Control and then middle click on the sign, and this will give you a sign with no text on it that you can repeatedly place. And there we go, we're all the way around. Now I'm going to grab some mangrove buttons and I'll place these on all the cherry wood planks at this level here. If you're enjoying today's tutorial and would like to build alongside me in a great community, check out my Patreon server. It's a great place to play. Alright, the mangrove buttons are in. On to the next details. We're going to be using some spruce here, and I'm building up 2 high on top of each of these cherry wood logs. I'm also going to use these fences to create some railing. So on the 2 wide sections, I'm just adding in 2 fences, and then on the 3 wide sections, I have a fence on either side with a fence gate in the center. Of course, you want to leave the gap where you walk up free. I'm also going to place a strip spruce log on the 4 corners on top of these posts. And continuing using these strip spruce logs, I'm going to use a placeholder block. I've just got white wool, and I'm going to go across the top, creating a beam. I'm going to extend out so I'm 2 out over the edge on either side, like that. This build is really starting to come together now. The next big feature we need to work on is the roof, so let's get started. I'm going to begin by joining up these 4 posts with some nether brick. I'll then switch to some nether brick slabs and place them in front. Once you're all the way around like this, I'm going to come to each corner and place 2 more slabs, so you can see this will double up this block here and then come one in front of the strip spruce logs. Also using slabs, I'll fill in these 2 sections on either end of the build and place one on top of each of the logs. Then I'm going to use a placeholder block to place a nether brick over the top of these gaps. And this is creating that really classic swooping point that we associate with Japanese style builds. I'm going to accentuate that even more with a nether brick wall on top of each. There we go. Now to work on the main part of the roof. I'm going to start by using some nether brick stairs and coming all the way across on either side. Like this. Now we're going to come around and curve out the stairs to create the gable point on these little gables here on the front and back of the build. And we'll do this all the way up, making sure we come 1 out over the edge each time. And I'll do this on both the front and back sides. Just like that. Then I'll switch to some nether brick slabs. I'm going to place one here, followed by a nether brick. Then I'm going to place a stair, and to do this I'm just going to use a placeholder block, which I can then remove. So we've got slab, block, stair, and I'll do the same at the back. Slab, block and a stair. Continuing with the stairs, I'm going to place them underneath this edge, the one on the front, and the ones on either side. You can see that the stairs here are facing towards each other, and then the one in the center is facing outwards. I'm going to create a point on the front and back of these gables, and then place a wall on the top. So they should look like this. And then we want to create some swooping points coming off of this spruce beam. So I will place a stair, and then another stair, and a wall on top. I also want to place some nether brick slabs 1 block apart along here, and I'm going to place mangrove buttons 1 block apart as well. Now let's add some more details, and then I'll be showing you how to decorate the interior and exterior of this build. So I'm going around with some cherry buttons here, placing them on the logs. And then at the front, I'm going to grab 2 stone brick walls and place them either side of the stair in front of these chiseled blocks. I'm also going to use some spruce hanging signs. And I'm going to use the same sign grabbing trick to grab the sign with nothing on it, so I can place them all the way around. You can see I'm placing these on the second block back. Like that. I'm also going to add some lanterns. On the front and back, I'll hang them 1 chain down like this. On the 2 sides, I'll hang them directly off these logs. And I also want to hang one from each corner. Alright, let's add some decoration. And there we go, we're all decorated. So you can see there's quite a lot going on here, so let's check it all out. To start off my decorations on the exterior, I've created this torii gate at the beginning of the pathway. This makes the build feel like a destination and welcomes you in. As we come along the pathway, I've placed these lanterns using some cherry wood and stone brick to tie in with the build. You can see the pathway itself is a mixture of gravel as well as some dead coral blocks. This gives it some more texture, and you can see I've used these buttons to create some stones. Then let's get a look at the front of the build. I've added some greenery to the build by draping some leaves down the roof and adding some bushes, and I've used these azalea leaves here as the pink ties in well with the cherry blossom. I've also added 2 cherry blossom trees in pots to either side. I've gone for a mixture of symmetry here with these planted cherry trees, as well as having an item on either side of the build. And I've mixed that with a bit of asymmetry to keep the eye moving, so we've got a path leading off here towards the left-hand side of the build, but not on the right. Let's follow along this more stepping stone style path underneath a smaller torii gate to our first destination. You can see things are a little smaller than on the main path with some small lanterns, and we arrive here at a little zen garden. I've used some sand and stairs to create a raked look, and I've even used the new suspicious sand block, which has a bit more texture just to break up the sand. I've created some rocks in a grouping of 3 around my zen garden here, and of course I've planted lots of bamboo. Let's head back along our path now and go to the other side of the build. On this side of the build, I've created a small pond. Once again, I've got the stones so it ties everything together and it's following the shape of the landscape here, flowing downwards. Water is a great way to add movement to a build, and it gives a really tranquil feel. It's now nighttime, and you can see that there are some beautiful glowing floating lanterns floating around the top of this build. These have a really magical effect and illuminate the sky and your build so it looks beautiful during the day and night. You can see that for the greenery I've stuck to my pink and my green. That way things don't become too complicated and the build can really stand out. So the greenery I've got around the place are these bushes, and then the natural growing pink petals and grass, and I think that this just gives a really lush look. The bamboo of course ties into this colour palette. Alright, let's head inside. I followed the colour palette inside. Now keep in mind that this is a smaller build, so we have a small amount of space to work with inside, but you can still make it look really beautiful. I've gone for a mixture of form and function here, incorporating some of the elements you need for a survival home into a pretty house. You can see that these looms make a really nice tatami mat. On the other side I've got some bookshelves and I've used some banners, pot plants, and some items and item frames for decorations. You can see this trapdoor here is a really simple but effective seat that really ties in with the Japanese style. Now if we head upstairs, I've created a little bedroom area. I've used a similar colour palette up here, adding in some banners and some item frames, and then I've used the bamboo. I really like the texture that this gives, and there is a really interesting pattern here on these trapdoors. This also works well in using the scaffolding as a table block here, and I like the fine detail that this adds. If we turn around, I've got my armor stand here and I've decorated it using the new armor patterns just to give a little bit more pizzazz. Now if you're building this in survival as a base, a really great way to add some more space to this build is to simply add a basement. Or another idea, if we head back outside, would be to have several of these little houses to create a village, and you could have one dedicated to each of the things you might need. So you could have a storage house, maybe a smelting house, and set up an automatic smelter inside, and you could have these dotted around in a little township with little pathways and torii gates connecting them. You could even customize this design by switching out the blocks to have a whole range of styles. So now you know how to build and decorate a Japanese-style cherry blossom house. If you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate if you'd consider liking and subscribing, and check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me further. See you in another video!